month break, I guess, due to a lack of activity, but it was well deserved. So we welcome everyone back here. Do we have any excused absence? I know we're missing two. Do we? Okay. All right. So we've don't have that. So the fourth item, prior to approving the agenda, I was made aware that we were supposed to re-elect our vice chair and chair of the board. And so at this time, I would like the board to consider that we amend this agenda to include those items for tonight's meeting.
I make a motion we amend the agenda.
We have a motion to amend the agenda to include the election of our chair and vice chair. Can I get a second? Okay, it's been moved and second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, so we'll add that at the, at what point we want to put that in the agenda?
That's your discretion, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest maybe if you want to take care of it now, that would be fine.
Okay, all right. So prior to approval of the minutes from our May meeting, we will now take nomination, beginning with our chair.
I make a motion that we keep our current chairperson.
I second.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved in second. Any other nominations? There being no other nominations, I'll ask for a vote for chair, which is Gregory Monroe, for a second term. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, so at this time we would make a motion, entertain nominations for our vice chair.
I make a motion that we retain the current vice chair.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded that we retain our vice chair. Any other nominations? There being no other nominations, we'll close the nomination and ask for a vote. All those in favor of vice chair, Mr. Doug Killian, please be noted for saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposal. Okay, moving to the next item, approval of May minutes. And those were sent to you in our packet that was either mail or email to you. Were there any discussion or corrections needed? Okay. Can I receive a motion to accept the approval of the May minutes? Okay, it's been motion made. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes for our May Planning Zoning Board meeting. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. Okay, and next item, Mary Beth McLaughlin final plat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the only other action item we have on the agenda tonight is the final plat for the aforementioned Mary Beth McLaughlin final plat. So this will just be a minor subdivision. So we don't need a preliminary plat for this. It's just a final plat that goes to you and then the council. So just a little bit of site data. This is out on Reedy Branch Road, and that's south of this intersection with 903. Current zoning is AR. It's just a 1 acre site on one lot. So you can see this is the actual land right here. So over here would be, this is Summer Winds, and down south will be Magnolia Ridge, just for reference. So there's the actual final plat. One item of note is along the back side, this is what you commonly refer to as a blue line stream. So it does have some a buffer associated with it. But typically it's not going to be a big issue. They'll just show it on the map for people to realize it's there. They are eligible to get it exempted. I have not received anything exempting it, so they will just have to be shown on the map. With that being said, I will entertain any questions you guys have.
Exactly where is that lot? I mean, I know I live down the road from it, but I'm confused about where it's going. And you said side of, Copper Creek,
so there's the Summer Winds entrance.
okay?
So literally about 180 to 200 feet
So it's-
south of it.
It would be back this way or the other way?
Yeah, so 11's down here, 903 would be up here. So you would go past your house and it'll be down on the left.
Down on the left,
Yeah.
okay.
So opposite side, so Magnolia, you got Magnolia Ridge,
Okay.
and then Summer Winds, and then Copper Creek,
Okay,
and then
now I know what you're talking
all
about.
right,
I wasn't for sure when I read that.
gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself of any voting for this
Okay.
map.
All right. I do have a question. You said now you said a small subdivision, but are they putting more than one building
No,
on
it's-
it?
And that's why we categorize it as a minor subdivision. So anything a minor subdivision is 2 to 10 lots with no road infrastructure going in. That's basically all they're doing. It's a big piece of parcel they're cutting 1 acre out of. Purposes to be residential at some time in the future. Somebody's going to build a house there. It appears it's going to a family member. But that's anytime you split land, it is technically a subdivision.
Oh, okay.
So,
I think the terminology subdivision in my mind, I'm thinking what
absolutely.
we currently
Yeah,
have
the
as
connotation of
subdivision.
Subdivision makes you think of roads and houses, but
Okay.
that's why the designation of minor. So anything that minor subdivision would usually not involve the building of a road or more than 10 lots.
Okay. Were there any further questions from the committee to staff? There being no questions, I'll entertain a motion to, what is your pleasure, to the Mary Beth McLaughlin final plat.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved to accept in a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor with the exception of the recused vote, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, none opposed. The Mary Beth McLaughlin final plat stands approved. Next item, the Southwest Bypass Land Use Plan update.
So I just want to give you guys a quick update where we're at on that. So this has been a pretty big planning venture that is cooperative between the county, city of Greenville, the town of Winterville, and the town of Ayden. So basically, if you guys will remember, this is just going to be a land use study with the land use adjacent to the corridor of the Southwest Bypass that's going to be going from Ayden all the way up to Greenville and going to 264. So right now, the steering committee met for its 6th and final time this past week. They did recommend to formally adopt that to the county commissioners. The town itself, Winterville, will not actually formally adopt this plan. What our plan is actually recognize it as a plan that we can incorporate and use the land use study and future land use planning that we have planned for the very near future, which will be our future land use plan, comprehensive plan. It's technically an update, but it's really going to be we're going to rehash it from start to finish. So we'll use things in this plan to go in our land use plan. So I really just gave one little snapshot of it just in the PowerPoint, but I can get as in depth as you guys want, or I can make it as brief as possible. But the bottom line is that the plan for all intents and purposes is done. The town's impact for it is minimum. There is some future land use categories that designated along the western side of the town, which will be on that left side of the 11 corridor. So we have a lot of industrial and commercial and mixed use over there. That's identified in the plan, which would correlate to what we have currently in our current land use plan and what we're envisioning is going to be in our updated land use plan. So overall, the plan is just it really. There's only one intersection in Winterville that's going to impact us. So I don't want to minimize it to say it's not affecting Winterville because I think it's a great product. But for our purposes, the plan is not going to be adopted. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because we're going to be doing this a lot more in depth in the very near future. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have on it though.
Now, I would just add, I represented the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board along with Ms. Jones, and it was very comprehensive. I think the public meetings that they have, the discussion sessions that they had at Pitt Community College were well attended, and there was a lot of things that were considered prior to Stewart making the recommendation for the land use, and I think each community that was represented at least had a part to say, you know, what they wanted, and would be easily merged into whatever would be done in the future. I think our town council will pay close attention to what we do when we get ready to revise our land use plan, and as well as how we would continue to work for the better of Winterville.
Absolutely. I think you'll see a lot of the same scenarios in our plan than what they did with this, just more on an intensive level, because we're going to be drilling down to every land use in the town instead of just kind of bypassing on the edge. So we're about to get into it hot and heavy with our stuff. So you guys will probably be tapped at some point to be involved in that, and obviously as a sounding board for how we're comprising that plan, and then ultimately recommending, hopefully recommending approval to council at some point in the next year.
Brian, that's my question. I think you've answered it, but I want to make sure I heard right. At the town council meeting, there's been discussion about the Horizon land use map, which is what I believe you're referring to.
Yes, sir.
And I wanted to make sure that this zoning board is not responsible at this time to develop that, or is the town council waiting on the planning and zoning to develop that? Help me understand where we fall into this picture.
Absolutely. So as an advisory board, you guys will probably be tapped to be part of a couple different scenarios. It could be a charrette, it could be a technical advisory committee, it could be a steering committee, it could be a stakeholder committee. So they're going to be all encompassing kind of aspects where we pull in multiple facets from the community, where we're going to be sitting down in a room going through everything. Ultimately, it's going to come to you guys before it goes to council. So you'll see a final draft of that plan, and you'll be giving your recommendation to council on whether or not that plan is satisfactory or it needs to go back to the drawing board. So yeah, you guys will be heavily involved just from a technical standpoint, because you guys see the nuts and bolts of what we do and the plans we put forward. So to get your guys' input is tremendously key to getting a good plan. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the Southwest Band bypass lane use? Okay, not the training session.
All right, so I just want to put a couple bullet points together. This is not going to be a comprehensive training session by any means. It's more of the spark debate between us to guys answer questions you guys may have as far as your role goes. I'm just going to kind of hit on my plan is at some point in the future we're going to build on this. So this is going to be just a short kind of maybe 10-15 minute presentation, dialogue, questions if you guys have it. But basically my plan is just kind of tell how planning boards operate in North Carolina, where they get their power from, what our primary responsibilities are, and then sometime in the near future build on these things as we have time to do so. It's a perfect time to do it tonight because we have such a short agenda. So in the event we have short agendas in the future, we'll just build on these things, and I think it creates a situation where you guys are learning and helping me learn, and everybody's knowing exactly what we're doing. I'll get on the same page. So with that being said, I'll just move right into it. So the authority to regulate land use in the United States, so there's two different kinds of authority. So you got the home rule state, or what people commonly refer to as Dillon's rule. So home rule state basically means that the state decides, or the local jurisdictions decide what they want to do. So the state gives them carte blanche. You get to decide on whatever you want to do. That's basically what it is in a nutshell. So the town or the municipality or the jurisdiction is pretty much going through their council or governing board, and they are creating their local legislation. North Carolina is not like that. We're a deal and rule state, so we get all of our power from the state legislator or state statutes. So all of our powers come directly from North Carolina state statutes. So everything we do is laid out in our statutes, meaning it sets out every kind of decision that we make on an advisory board or a governing board. There are certain rules we have to go by, meaning it has to be advertised, or it has to be go to the planning board before it goes to the council. However it's set up, the state gives us that direction, so that's what we have to follow. Now with that, there are constitutional limits, obviously. So you got due process, where obviously you have to have a fair procedure, equal protection, which basically means exactly what it sounds like. Everybody's treated the same. Takings, the government can't take property without giving fair market value, or some practical, they can't take a practical or reasonable use from you. So you have to get something out of it. And then obviously you got freedom of speech, religion, assembly, association, movement, and privacy. So those are just the things to keep in mind as we're doing. And obviously we have a town attorney, so hopefully he'll keep us straight and all that. So here's just a simple little chart kind of explaining governmental roles in planning. So the middle column there is the agency, for lack of a better term, agency, with the primary responsibility. So the governing body, obviously, for the town is the town council. So they are a legislative board. They're going to adopt ordinances, amendments, policies, budgets. They're going to do stuff like approve acquisitions in the event the town's buying any land. And then obviously they're going to make appointments to other boards. So in some towns, depending on size, they can serve as the planning board, can serve as the board of adjustment. That's not the case in Winterville. We have 3 separate boards: board of adjustment, planning board, and town council. So the planning and zoning board is an advisory board. So just like it says up there, you're tasked with sponsoring planning studies, recommending policies, advising the governing board, coordination of public participation, and recommends initial zoning ordinances, just to name a few. Also in North Carolina, this board could serve as a board of adjustment, and that would be pretty much at the discretion of town council. So obviously that's not the way we do it. We have a board of adjustment and a planning and zoning board. The board of adjustment, quasi-judicial, just like a courtroom procedure. So you're actually getting sworn in. You're taking, you're doing findings of fact, and so you're actually presenting evidence when you're making decisions on that level. And then you have staff, which is the administrative arm of the roles in planning. So basically, we'll do this day-to-day activities, issuing zoning permits. We'll be coordinating technical studies, initiates enforcement of anything that's out of line with the ordinance, and then advises the town manager on any upcoming activities. Any questions?
So at what point would the Board of Adjustment in our situation be activated if there's a dispute between who and who that they would?
So sure, so the Board of Adjustment is going to hear conditional use permits, they're going to hear variances. So some appeals will go to the Board of Adjustments, but not many. Most of the appeals we got, the way it's set up in our ordinance, would go to council. But the primary role for Board of Adjustment is for conditional use permits or special use permits and variances to ordinances. So that would be subdivision or the zoning ordinance.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Follow up on Greg's question, that would be something separate from what we would ever see, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be totally different because, again, we'd be in a different scenario. We'd be swearing in witnesses. We'd be taking findings of fact. And it's all, it has to be, so you've got a certain number of questions. All the answers have to match up. If one answer is different from the others, then it's usually going to be a no vote or a cancellation of the variance request or whatever it is.
I think years ago, or a couple of years ago, I've heard Mayor Jackson say that, generally our Board of Adjustment, when they make a decision, it's, that's the only decision the town council can't overturn.
That's right. Once a Board of Adjustment makes a decision, that is a legal case at that point. So it would actually have to go to the courts. Superior Court of North Carolina would have to do that appeal. And then, if depending on how it goes there, it could graduate up further than that. But yeah, it'll have to go through the court system to be appealed. Typically, you're going to see a lawsuit type of situation in that situation.
Does our Board of Adjustment have a standing meeting like we do?
Yes. So they just have lack of agenda items have caused them. Let's see. Since I've been here, we've met 3 or 4 times. So that's out of pretty much 50% of the time I've been here. We've met. So.
Okay.
But it's actually a good thing if you ask me. I mean, we're not looking for a whole lot of out of the norm situations. That's what a Board of Adjustment is really looking for. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that we're not meeting.
Great.
The only bad thing is it gets them out of practice of what to look for and what not to look for. So I will be kind of heading up a training session for them too, just to kind of keep everybody on the same page, keep everybody abreast of what's going on and what their roles and functions are as well. So these are just, I put a handout in your guys' agenda packet. So UNC School of Government, they're a really good resource for us. And that was the paper or the handout I gave you guys. Really general, it's those broad terms, but it kind of gives you a feel of what a planning board's responsibilities are. So when it says make studies of the area within the jurisdiction surrounding areas, basically that's a land use plan. That's a small area plan or a traffic study or something that we would have come through you guys, and it would ultimately need your stamp of approval before it moves on. So determining objectives to be sought in this development of the study area, that's exactly what we'll be doing when we move forward with our land use plan. We'll be sitting down in a room and figuring out what we want the town to look like, where we want certain things to be. So you might hear you might have heard a term called form-based, whatever. So a form-based code is basically, so if the town wanted some form-based code to be in a certain part of town where you want something to look a certain way. So think of like Fire Tower Road. So it's a four-lane median highway. So if somebody said, we wanted something like that with specific driveways going into developments or something, we could develop a form-based code like that. So and that's just hypothetical example, but something that you guys could determine objectives to be sought. If that's something you saw that would benefit the town. Some people like it, some people don't. So prepare and adopt plans for achieving these objectives. Again, same arena. So you're developing and recommending policies, advising council, and performing other duties that the council would see fit to direct the board to do. So, like I said, these are real general, broad strokes. So, I mean, this could mean a lot of things. So, the Winterville Code of Ordinances, so it gives the board shall have the rights, privileges, duties, and authority, and shall exercise the functions as are conferred by state law and the ordinances of the town. So that goes back to that Dillon's rule I was talking about earlier. So the state law has dictated what we can and can't do. So the recommendations of the planning and zoning shall be advisory to the council and shall without legal efficacy until approved by council. So basically just going over the fact that you guys are an advisory committee. So our specific roles are review and recommendation for preliminary and final plats. You'll see rezonings and you'll see ordinance amendments. So all that's going to come to you guys, and that's pretty much the 4 categories you're going to see the majority of. So one thing, and I'll pick on Dawn because she actually did it tonight. So conflict of interest. So just keep in mind you're never legally supposed to participate in a vote or a recommendation if you have a direct, substantial, or readily identified viable financial interest in the outcome of the recommendation. So Dawn did exactly the right thing tonight. Obviously, she works for the company that produced the plat that was on our agenda. She recused herself. We're all good. So just always keep that guy in mind. If you feel like something could be tied back to you that you may seen in an unethical light, it's probably best to go ahead and recuse yourself from that vote. So we talked about the comprehensive plan a lot. So the question always comes up, why plan? I mean, I think it's a pretty easy answer. You always hear that failure to plan is planning to fail. So, you know, if you're growing and you have growth like Winterville and Pitt County's having, you're gonna have to have something to fall back on. If you're just letting developers come in and willy-nilly put hodgepodge stuff together, we're gonna have a mess on our hands. So when we put together a plan like this, we're not only looking at what's going on right now, we're gonna try to project what's gonna happen 20, sometimes 30 years in the future. So we're looking at things like school systems, transportation. We're looking at the ability to provide services. We're looking at the ability to have infrastructure here for those services. We're even looking at the ability to have commercial land so that people can have just basic functions of grocery stores, things like that. So obviously I kind of went over some. So we're trying to manage growth, we're trying to manage development, population growth, minimize land use conflicts. So that's why you have zoning, that land use conflict. You obviously don't want an industrial site going beside a church or a school or something like that. It does happen, but you try to plan for those things not to happen. So you obviously want to take pressure off infrastructure where you can. School facility planning, hazard mitigation is a big one. So you're looking at your areas of environmental concern. Floodplains would be the most common one in eastern North Carolina. So that would go toward protecting our natural resources, our rivers, our streams, our lakes, anything like that. Economic development is a huge part of planning. So we're trying to be sustainable in the fact that the town is trying to generate enough revenue to actually provide these functions. So it's kind of faded out, but this is I thought it was a cool graphic. It shows the population growth between 2010 and 2020. So the dark blue or purple, whatever that color is, you can see where those heavy concentrations of population growth are. So obviously you're going to see it around Charlotte, you're going to see it around Raleigh, you're going to actually see it down around Myrtle Beach area and the southern beaches. But if you can see, so Pitt County is the only one pretty much east of 95 that is shaded in the positive over here. So it's showing about a 12%, 6 to 12% increase between 10 and 20. Things I'm reading are actually more than that. But you can see everything else around us is in that negative. So Pitt County is becoming more of a beacon for growth in the eastern part of North Carolina. So we've got to be prepared. We've got to put forth the effort. We've got to put the money down, and we've got to make sure we're ready when it comes.
Brian, I actually used this in my dissertation study, and the other significance in this is that Pitt County is the place where, I mean, we're growing teachers, but people are living here, working outside, because there are no other development in Greene, Martin, Edgecombe, and Lenoir County. So we are, we have those places where they live in Pitt and they work in other places, but then as our school system and other things are growing, they are losing those people and they're coming back home to work.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, and just a side note, with what's happening in the Triangle area, we get the trickle-down effect off that, and then if something would happen like the Amazon headquarters going there, we would see a significant boom from that. You're talking about 50,000 additional jobs. If you go to Raleigh, Triangle area right now, you're not finding a house. Like, people cannot find homes to live in because they can't build them fast enough, or they're just running out of land, period. So where's that going to go? It's going to go out, so it's going to come our way. But with jobs in Tarboro, they got the, what's the place, the tire factory they did up there? So, I mean, you're looking at big industrial job producers that are coming to eastern North Carolina, and we just have to be poised for it. And you guys are an integral part of that. So that's pretty much all I had, guys. So I'd be happy to facilitate any discussion, any questions you guys have.
I just commented to Doug that I like this idea. It's, you know, it's not too long, but it gives a lot of information and just reinforces what we think we know.
Absolutely, yeah, and that thank you for saying that. That's kind of the intent of it. So, and we'll keep doing this as well. So, if you guys have any ideas, what you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to email me, and I'll try to incorporate that into. Obviously, I'll answer you directly, but if I feel like it's a big enough issue, we'll go over it in meetings, so we can make sure that we're all on the same page. I think if we're all on the same page, that the more we're on the same page, the better off we'll be. So.
Yep.
Right. That concludes the training session.
Yes, sir.
Staff report.
So you guys saw what was in the staff report. So basically, I was just going to report everything's. We got a lot of stuff going on. Development as far as single-family homes have actually declined, and there's a reason behind that. We don't have any more lots in Winterville right now. So we did. You guys saw some earlier this year. So we've got about right at 400 lots sitting out there on preliminary plat stages. So we're just waiting on the developers to come in with construction. So Holly Grove that you guys saw earlier, they just started putting equipment out on site, which is out on Church Street Extension across from the Operations Center. So you'll, if you're out that way soon, you'll see them moving dirt. The Big Bill Clark subdivision on Worthington Road. I know they are trying to clean up some. There was some tenants on that property that were leasing land, so I think they're trying to get those guys squared away. And once they get that squared away, we should be seeing construction plans. I'm trying to think if there's another one that I could update you on. Other than that, we've got the RFP for our land use plan. We sent it out last month. The deadline to get proposals was Friday. We did receive a handful of those, so we'll be starting to go through the consultants this week and next week, and hopefully be scheduling some sit-down interviews with their contacts or their representatives, and getting a consultant on board as soon as possible. So we got some good ones in there, and I'm excited about it. So it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be a good product. Hopefully, before this time next year, we'll have it all squared away and done. So, and that's about all your staff reports, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Are any comments from the planning board? All right. If there be no more business before this planning board, I entertain a motion to adjourn until our next setting.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you. You know.
I gotta get back to a little one I left.